The first time I saw the eviction notice taped to my front door, I actually laughed. Not because it was funny, but because of how absurd it felt. I've paid off this house. I own every inch of soil beneath it. And yet, there it was, a bright orange paper stamped with HOA action required. At first, I thought it was some kind of prank. Maybe kids in the neighborhood were messing around again. But when I peeled it off and saw the official HOA seal, the one with the gold crest and signatures, I felt my stomach twist. It said I was in violation of Section 14B, unauthorized exterior modification. In plain words, they were trying to evict me for repainting my own porch. I'd spent the weekend sanding, priming, and painting it a soft forest green. The same color my late wife used to love. The notice gave me 7 days to comply or vacate. 7 days, to leave the house I built with my own hands. At the bottom, there was a signature I'd never seen before. Margaret H. Linton, HOA President. I'd heard of her, of course. Everyone in the neighborhood had. Margaret was the type who smiled at you while filing complaints behind your back. She'd gotten herself elected HOA President last year. And since then, rules started popping up like weeds. She once fined a widow $250 for hanging wind chimes. Another time, she made a veteran remove his flag because it clashed with the community aesthetic. So when I saw her name on that notice, I knew this wasn't about paint. This was personal. The next morning, I went to the HOA office. It's a small building by the community pool. But Margaret treated it like the White House. She sat behind a polished oak desk. A fake smile already waiting for me. "Well, Mr. Daniels," she began. "I see you've been busy changing the color of your property. Unfortunately, that shade of green isn't approved in our community palette." She pushed a folder toward me like a judge delivering a verdict. I kept my voice calm. "Margaret, I've lived here for 10 years. I know the palette. Forest green is in it. You approved it 2 years ago for your own house." For a second, her eyes flickered. Then the smile returned. "Nevertheless," she said sweetly, "you'll need to repaint or vacate. We have standards to maintain, Mr. Daniels. Surely, you understand." I leaned forward. "Oh, I understand perfectly. But before I repaint, I'd suggest you double-check the ownership records. It might save you some embarrassment." She frowned, clearly annoyed that I hadn't folded. "I don't see what that has to do with anything," she said sharply. "Everything," I replied. "Because the house you're sitting in? The one this office rents?" I paused. "It's mine." For the first time, the smile vanished completely. Her jaw tightened, eyes darting between me and the file. Outside, I could hear the faint sound of the community pool. Children laughing, sprinklers hissing. As silence filled the room like thunder before a storm, she finally spoke, voice trembling slightly. "That's impossible. The HOA owns this property." I shook my head slowly. "No, Margaret. The HOA leases it. From me." I stood up, straightened my jacket, and placed my copy of the lease agreement on her desk. Her hands trembled as she read the name at the bottom. Landlord, Jonathan Daniels. Tenant, HOA Community Board. Her face drained of color. I wasn't aware of this," she stammered. "Clearly," I said. "Now, about that eviction notice. You have 7 days to remove it. Or vacate my property." As I turned to leave, I caught my reflection in the glass door. An older man, calm, steady, carrying both grief and quiet fire. For the first time in months, I smiled. This fight wasn't just about pain anymore. It was about respect. I thought that after our little confrontation, Margaret would back off. For a few days, things were quiet. Too quiet. Then the letters started coming, one after another, like bullets wrapped in envelopes. Noise complaint. Trash bin violation. Unauthorized tree trimming. Each one carried a new fine, signed in her neat cursive hand. It was obvious, she wanted to bleed me dry through bureaucracy. But what she didn't realize was that I'd been fighting bigger battles my entire life. Bureaucracy? Please. I've faced court-martials, insurance audits, and 2 divorces. Margaret Linton was just another storm I'd have to walk through. Still, it hurt to see how easily a neighbor could turn into an enemy. The same woman who once asked me to fix her sprinkler now glared at me from her SUV. She wanted a war, and she was going to get one. One morning, I woke up to the sound of hammering. When I stepped outside, I froze. There was a giant wooden post in my yard with a new sign. Property under HOA review, entry restricted. It was the ultimate insult, a public mark of shame. Neighbors slowed down their cars to stare. Some waved awkwardly, others avoided eye contact. Margaret had turned my home into a spectacle. That night, I sat at my kitchen table, surrounded by stacks of HOA letters. I read each one carefully, every fine, every notice. And that's when I spotted something. A signature, not hers, but forged. The dates didn't match. Some fines were issued on Sundays, when the HOA office was closed. She wasn't just abusing her power, she was fabricating documents. I called my attorney, a quiet man named Raymond Cho. He listened patiently, then said the words that changed everything. Mr. Daniels, if what you're saying is true, she's committed fraud. And since you own that building, this is technically a crime committed on your property. It took me a second to realize the irony. The woman who tried to evict me might end up being evicted herself, by the law. The next week, we filed a formal complaint. Fraud, document falsification, harassment, misuse of HOA funds. Raymond was thorough, almost surgical. And as the investigation began, the neighborhood started to whisper. People who once sided with Margaret started distancing themselves. Neighbors who had stayed silent came to my door with quiet apologies. One woman even brought me homemade cookies. The kind my wife used to bake before she passed. It's funny how justice works. It doesn't always roar. Sometimes, it whispers, through the small acts of those who finally see the truth. 3 weeks later, the HOA board held an emergency meeting. Margaret walked in, still holding her clipboard like a badge of power. But when she saw the stack of evidence on the table, her confidence cracked like glass under pressure. The board voted 6-1 for her removal. The motion passed, effective immediately. Her title, her authority, her signature, gone. As she packed her things, our eyes met one last time. There was no gloating in mine, only quiet understanding. Power means nothing without respect. And respect isn't given, it's earned. The day after Margaret's removal, the neighborhood felt lighter. The air no longer carried tension. For the first time in months, people smiled again when they passed by my porch. Someone even left a small note taped to my mailbox. Thank you for standing up for all of us. I stood there for a long time, holding that note between my fingers. It was simple. But sometimes, it's the simple things that heal the deepest wounds. A week later, the new HOA board asked me to attend their meeting. I almost refused, I'd had enough of their politics. But then I thought about what my wife used to say. Don't let bitterness steal your peace. Lead, but with grace. So I went. The meeting was held in the same little office, the one they used to rent from me. But this time, it felt different. The new members greeted me with genuine warmth, not forced politeness. They asked if I'd consider serving as the interim HOA advisor. Not a president, not a position of power, but someone who could help them rebuild trust in the community. I hesitated, then smiled. All right, I said. Let's fix what's been broken. Over the next few months, we changed everything. No more absurd fines, no more discrimination hidden behind paperwork. We created a community care day, a weekend where neighbors helped each other fix fences, repaint mailboxes, plant trees. The laughter came back. Sometimes, I'd sit on my porch in the evening, watching the sunset glaze the roofs in gold. That same porch Margaret once tried to use against me. The same porch my wife had painted green all those years ago. And I'd whisper to myself, she'd like this. A few weeks later, Margaret showed up. She looked different, smaller somehow, tired. She held a white envelope in her hands. I expected anger. Instead, she handed it to me and said quietly, I wanted to apologize. Inside was a check, repayment for all the false fines and fees she'd imposed. She didn't make excuses. She just said, you were right. I let pride blind me. I looked at her for a long moment, then pushed the envelope back. Keep it, I said. Use it to plant trees. Something good should grow from all this. She nodded, eyes wet, and walked away without another word. That was the last time I saw her. But sometimes, on quiet mornings, I hear shovels clinking in the community garden near the entrance. New trees, new beginnings. People often ask me why I didn't sue her. Why I didn't take every cent she owed me. And the truth is simple. Justice isn't always about revenge. Sometimes, it's about restoration. The house still stands, the porch still green. The same color of peace my wife saw in me when I couldn't see it myself. Now, when people walk by, they don't see a war that was fought. They see a home that was defended. And if there's one thing I've learned from all this, it's that real ownership isn't just about deeds or titles. It's about standing your ground with dignity and leaving something better behind than what you found.